People worldwide who will die of malnutrition this year, 20 million. That's pretty crazy, eh? People who could be adequately fed using land freed if Americans reduce their intake of meat by only 10%, 100 million. So you only need to reduce your meat intake by 10% to eradicate world hunger, or starvation at least. Amazing, eh? Such a small change. What else have we got? Percentage of corn grown in the US eaten by people, 20% of corn grown is only eaten by people. Percentage of corn grown eaten by livestock, 80. Oats, 95% of oats go straight to livestock. Protein wasted by recycling grains through livestock, 90%. So as I mentioned earlier, you get protein from grains, you get protein from oats. Oats is actually quite high, it's 30 to 35% protein, it's very high. Now feeding that to cows, the amount of food you give that cow and the net protein you get at the end of the day when you slaughter that cow, you're looking at a 90% loss of value, food value. It's totally insane. And then when you add to that, between 50 and 90% of nutritional value is lost when you cook the meat. I mean, it's staggering. Staggering. That's where you can start seeing that a few small changes, we can feed everyone easily. So what about health? Many studies. I actually have a PDF of this, which show heart disease and hypertension and diabetes and cancer, kidney stones, osteoporosis, food poisoning, arthritis. They show actual studies of vegetarians who have lower incidence of these. So this has been known. If you want that PDF, just email our office and they'll send it through to you. And then you can do the research too. This is the rat thing again, remember? So the rats grow quick, but they get all these diseases. Humans too. They might grow big and look big, but the system can only handle so much. Dr. Colin Campbell, author of the China study, reckons that we're basically a vegetarian species and should be eating a wide variety of plant foods and minimizing our intake of animal foods. Basically a vegetarian species. Now, I don't like boxes, so I don't like calling myself a vegan, although I practically am a vegan. I do include small amounts of animal foods, once a month, once every 2 months, but tiny amounts. Usually, it's not for protein though, it'll be for things like vitamin B12 and other vitamin Bs and a few other minerals. Oysters, for example. Eggs, if I get them from a very good source, but again, it's very rarely. You know, it's something that you can still have in your diet, but really it's all about reduction. It's about eating less of it, because you don't need lots of it.
What are the benefits of oysters?
Very high in zinc, for men that's especially good. Very high in vitamin B12, very high B12. Yeah. And again, for vegetarian vegans, B12 can be an issue. So that's where you would go if you're looking for it. And most of them are cultivated there, and the cultivation is very simple. It's just water, salt water, so there's no weird stuff that goes on there. Dr. Colin Campbell in his book said that when they were feeding animals protein levels in excess of 10% of their calorie intake, cancer started forming, and it started skyrocketing the higher the percentage got. So you want to look at reducing your intake of animal foods and animal protein to below 10%. Remember, the World Health Stat was 4.5% total protein was sufficient. So if you're anywhere between 5 and 10% animal foods, that's more than enough. You don't, from any health perspective, need any more than that. Again, you don't actually need any of it. I understand it's a long shot for most people to go that far. This one I found interesting. I was doing a bit of research on traditional diets and what people ate around the world, and there's lots of this kind of research. There was a Swedish researcher, Stefan Lindeberg, who was studying inhabitants of the Kitava, one of the islands of Papua New Guinea. Has anyone heard of these guys? Okay, so what he found is that death from sudden cardiac health, stroke, chest pains never occurred. They never have any of this stuff. There's literally no cardiovascular disease. And he attributed to what he called the Paleolithic diet. Now there's a lot of misinformation about what a true paleo diet is, because some people go, Banting is paleo. And it's like, no, it's not paleo at all. It's Banting. It's totally different. So this is what they eat. They're traditional farmers. Their dietary staples are tubers, yams, sweet potatoes, and taro. Fruit, fish, and coconut. Those are their staples. Very, very simple diets. They don't use dairy products, or alcohol, or coffee, or cereals, or sugar. Western foods constitute less than 1% of their diet. So they don't have wheat, they don't have corn, they don't do any of the grains that are so prevalent in the West. 21% of their total calories they got from fat, and 17 of that is, or 17 of the 100 is saturated fat. So very high saturated fat. Where did they get that from? Coconut. Coconut fat is probably one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest saturated fat you could get. Coconut oil, I mean, we've got pages of information in our superfood book about how amazing coconut oil is. Pile it on. Love the Banting for spreading the good love about coconut oil, like as much as you can get. 10% of their calorie intake was from protein, so that would have been the fish. And then 69% from carbs. 69%, but they're getting it from root vegetables. Heirloom, original root vegetables. They're not getting it from white refined grains. Very big difference. So I mean, you could just kind of play with that as a template for yourself. Switching to something like that. I know it's kind of boring, so do that with Rawlicious maybe.
And yams give you testosterone.
Well, yams are a hormonal precursor, so yeah, it's supportive for both men and women, hormonally.
Peter?
Yes.
How does it taro look? What is that?
How does it?
Taro.
I have no idea. I shouldn't look into it. Taro. Does anyone know what taro looks like? The food, the tuber.
American one.
We could probably Google it. Taro, it'll show you. Yeah. Obviously, we don't get it yet, so don't worry. Just go for the sweet potato. Yeah. Forget about potatoes. They've been hybridized for hundreds of years to have no nutritional value whatsoever. Sweet potato, on the other hand, superfood. It's actually the superfood of North America. It can hold up to 56 minerals, a sweet potato. Amazing. Now, eating it raw is hard. I am the first to admit that. So I steam or lightly boil my sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Can you talk about regular potatoes? Is it organic?
Look, if you can get an heirloom source of potatoes, like Jenny on our property, she often grows purple potatoes and black potatoes. Far stronger flavor, much smaller. That's amazing. That's real food. You know, you get this big fluffy tomato that you bake and it's just all starch. It doesn't give you anything except constipation. So, it is available now. Real potatoes. Yeah. Ethical carb. Buy it online. So one of the questions that I always get asked is, okay, so what about quality? Like, can we improve the quality of the meat that we're eating? And it's a twofold answer. The answer is yes, and the answer is also no. And I'll tell you why. Because we live in a situation now where there's actually no safe meat left. Because of the pollution that we find in even wild natural areas, and certainly in the ocean, anything you're getting is going to have some risk associated. So the best we can really do is mitigate our risks if we choose to eat animal food. And the way that you do that is you really only choose wild game and or truly certified organic animal foods. Those are your two safety points. Free range is absolute rubbish. Grain fed is absolute rubbish. Grass fed is pretty rubbish too. You have to look deeper than that. And often it actually means getting in touch with a farmer themselves and going, what are you doing? How are you farming? You know, go out to Spear, chat to Angus, see what he does. It's a very different process there. You know, if you've seen what a feedlot looks like, you drive down the West Coast Road, they're all over there. You see them, it's the black areas where there's no grass. There's just thousands of cows in a fenced area. And you're like, why don't they let them out into the field? I don't understand that either. I think the key though is really to look at how much you can reduce your intake of animal foods. So for me, it's the MeatFree challenge. So I don't know if some of you are aware of MeatFree Mondays. It is Monday, right? Yeah. Tuesday. Is it Tuesday?
No, today's Tuesday, but it is MeatFree Monday.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. There's amazing places in South Africa that try and get this information out there. Things like PETA, P-E-T-A, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. A lot of good info on there. But they're basically trying to bring awareness to go, okay, just once a week, guys, don't eat meat. I'm saying, how about 6 days a week, don't eat meat? 7 if you can, absolutely. But for most people in the South African diet, that might be on a gradient. So just start by taking out 6 days and just once a day. How many of you no longer eat meat? I'm just curious. We're not judging you, don't worry. Okay, so quite a few. It's interesting. It's definitely becoming more prevalent. More and more people are waking up to this.
Peter, do you think that New Zealand, because they free-range their sheep, for instance, up on the top of the mountain,
Sure.
do you think that their meat is possibly...
It could be, but if it's in South Africa, it's a long way away in New Zealand. How does it get you? Like, what chemicals are
But
there?
they still get lots of cancer in New Zealand.
Sure, but they eat junk food too, eh? Yeah. Just because they live in a beautiful place doesn't mean they eat well.
How do you eat eggs when you get them?
So if you do get truly free-range eggs from happy chickens, you don't eat GMO. This is the other thing. I'm doing a talk soon called Frankenfoods. Because it's time. People need to know what their food is, and most people don't know. So Frankenfoods, I'm going to lay into genetically modified food. This is probably the scariest thing happening on our planet right now. Maybe even more scary than what's happening to animals. Maybe even. Because it's technology that we don't have control over. It gets out in nature. And it can do crazy stuff. Like, we have no idea. We do have some idea, and that's why it's so scary. So most farmers feed their animals corn, and it's almost always GMO, because I think 90% of South African corn is genetically modified. So, and this is like, I've chatted to chicken farms, I've been like, so I see you giving your chicken feed, but you're like into permaculture and organic, and like, do you eat the eggs? He's like, yeah, but it doesn't go into the eggs, it just goes in the chicken. So I was like, I couldn't answer because I hadn't done the research, so I started Googling. It's 100% proven there is transfer of genetic code from the GMO feed into the egg, into the chicken meat. Guaranteed. So you have to make sure that they're not eating genetically modified food, and that's probably the hardest thing. So this is where someone like, again, Angus at Spear uses organic grain.
You eat the eggs raw.
Yeah.
The yolk, you eat raw. The white, you cook. The yolk, there's a lot of nutrition that gets damaged if you cook it. That's where most of the nutrients are. The white has enzyme inhibitors in it. So if you eat the yolk, if you eat the white raw, it's going to cause digestive. So soft boiled, 4 or 5 minutes, or poached. Yeah.
So then you put it in, how do you eat that raw?
Soft boiled egg, 4 to 5 minutes.
No, the yellow.
Yeah, that's your raw egg. The white will be cooked, the yellow will be raw, soft boiled.
Oh, so the soft boiled and you mean that way?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you really don't want to cook your yolk, you always separate it, cook the whites, and add the yolk back. So again, if you're eating animal products, wild biltong is probably your best choice if you're going to eat it, because we live in a country where there is still a lot of wild game around. Sometimes they put the label on ostrich. Ostrich is never wild, it's always farmed. And the farming in ostrich is probably more atrocious than with cattle. They get more antibiotics than any other animal in this country. Why? Why would an ostrich? You think ostrich, we know it's better. An ostrich is a very prehistoric animal. It can't handle confined spaces. It can't handle feed. So this is what they do. They put ostriches in a small camp and they feed them. And the ostriches get sick within days. So then they pump them full of antibiotics. That's what happens. So yeah, I don't think that our ostrich is the better one. So fish, we have the situation, obviously there's mercury in the ocean and radiation in the ocean. So the bigger the fish, the more mercury you get access to, because it's been hunting for a long time. The smaller the fish, the less exposure you have. So if I do eat fish, and it's very rare, it's like maybe once every 2 months or so, I'll make sure I have something like wild caught Cape salmon sashimi. Okay, but it has to be Cape salmon because that's fairly small and low mercury levels. Yellowtail high mercury, tuna high mercury. So you take a risk. Now you can mitigate the risk. You could take chlorella tablets before you go for dinner. You could take zeolite powder before you go for dinner, and that's going to help. But I wouldn't recommend making a habit of it. It's actually a great thing that factory farmed fish is available.
Why?
Because if it wasn't, there would be no fish left in the ocean. You look at the numbers of how many fish eaten are factory farmed or wild. Factory farmed is much higher numbers. So basically, if everyone suddenly started eating wild fish, there'd be no wild fish within a year in the ocean. Gone.
The factory farm also practice egg
That's terrible. No, I mean, it's horrendous. Antibiotics, dodgy GMO feed, destroys the environment. Like, sorry, don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning factory farming fish. It's shocking. I'm just saying, I like to have fish in the sea.
Well, it's cooked with salmon from again.
Yeah. So I know it's risky, you know. Wild fish is very rare. I mean, yeah. I don't know, I'm not going to get into these stories. People go to restaurants, seafood restaurants, and they're like prawns. And what do you think those? Where did they grow? Does anyone know? Where did the prawns grow? In sewage. Yeah, they grow in sewage in tanks in China, and they ship them here. Yeah, most people think, oh, someone was out there with the nets.
Sorry, you mentioned something about oysters.
Yeah, so oysters are farmed very easily, simply. It's in tanks, they just flood them with salt water. And that's how they grow. They don't need any other, they don't feed them anything. It's not
like sewage.
Do they? No. Really? Okay. I'll have to look into that. Okay, so, you know, this is the challenge. Like, I can make recommendations, but it's dangerous either way.
Just change it. You have to keep the right.
Yeah, you need to. And you've got to be just, you know, reduction of intake means reduction of exposure. It's as simple as that. Okay, what else have we got? Alternatives. So, what are the alternatives then? If we want to reduce our meat, we want to stop eating that stuff, we don't want to support that industry, we want to get out of that world, that crazy stuff. What about soya? I'm not saying it's no good, I'm just saying grass-fed is a term that a lot of corporations will use, like free range. You actually have to go and see, are they eating grass? Are they pumping them full of hormones? Are they pumping them full of antibiotics? You know?
Like the meat in Namibia, they walk around, but then they bring them back to the feedlot before they...
Yeah. So it's, yeah, that's the thing, you know, okay, walk around for your hour and then come back in. That's free range.
And grass fed.
Or there's a window, it's free range, they can see the grass. You know, these statements don't actually mean anything, they're just statements and they have commercial value, that's really it. If you guys haven't seen YouTube, the natural effect, Google it, the natural effect. There's a group in the States put these videos out. It's basically an ad agency, and they're trying to sell the word natural to food companies. It's like an 8-minute video clip, and it's funny, it's hilarious, but it's totally true, which was what makes it so funny. I should show you like that. Okay. So then we get to soy. So what about soy? Everyone's eating soya, and the alternative, all the vegetarians and the vegans. Not a good idea. Bad idea to be trying to swap out your meat with soya. And more people are becoming aware of this. They contain natural toxins, the beans. They cannot be eaten raw. You can't digest soybean raw, you have to process it. So traditionally, soya was either fermented or boiled for a very long time to get it digestible. That's the way to process it. Industrial processors, they're like, fermenting? It takes ages. We need to make money. Boiling. There's way too much energy involved in that too. So what do they do instead? They have these big aluminium tanks, and they put, acid, sulfuric acid, or hydrochloric acid in there. And the hydrochloric acid dissolves the soybean. The problem, of course, is that it also dissolves the tank. And the aluminium in the tank gets into the final product. I kid you not, because I put numbers in here. I put numbers in. I can't give you numbers, I mean, they're available.
What are these stainless steel?
It's too expensive. A big stainless steel drum costs a fortune. Yeah, aluminium's cheap.
You gotta keep replacing the aluminium, it's cheaper than stainless steel.
Well, it leaches slowly.
But the stainless steel would rust as well, wouldn't it?
Probably rust. I'm sure there's a reason they're not using that. Yeah. So acid wash and aluminium tanks. Then, of course, they have nitrites that they add, which are potent carcinogens. They form during the spray drying process. And then they add artificial flavorings like MSG. So when you buy textured vegetable protein or soya protein isolate, i.e. burgers, soy sausage, soy mince, that's what you're getting. And it's almost always genetically modified.
you tell us about Agent Orange tonight?
Agent?
Orange.
I don't know anything about Agent Orange.
You do.
Sounds bad.
It's Roundup and all that.
Oh, Roundup.
So
Glyphosate. Even the World Health Organization has now come out and said that it's dangerous. Yeah, they spray all of it. With Roundup, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most dangerous poisons now. Who saw the recent video clip of the guy who was challenged to drink a thing of it? So on TV, they're interviewing this guy who's like a spokesperson for, the safety of Roundup. And he says, you know what, the stuff is so safe you can drink it. And so the interviewer says, oh, we just happen to have some here. Would you like a glass? And he's like, you know what his response is? I'm not stupid. He's the spokesperson for the industry that sells the stuff as safe to drink. Amazing. Yeah. And they sprayed in South Africa everywhere, all the sidewalks. That's what they use to kill the weeds. All the sidewalks. Washes straight into the waterways, and kids walk on it. It's insane, totally insane. Like, I know today's a scary talk.
it's done by the health department.
Sorry. Sold by the health department.
Oh, the health department.
Endorse it, I'm sure. Yeah. There's lots to that. What else we got? Moving along. So the other thing that the soy has, high estrogenic food, and of course it's genetically modified. Most of the soy in South Africa is genetically modified. It's estimated that, I found this study that said, as little as 30 grams, that's 4 tablespoons of soy protein isolate or soy texture vegetable protein, can result in hypothyroidism with symptoms of lethargy, constipation, weight gain, and fatigue. So if you have any of those symptoms and you eat soy regularly, check how much you're having. Because the thyroid is what gets hammered by it. Amazing.
Peter, sorry, what about like organic, so tofu?
I'm getting to that. Hang on, Marina. Soy infant formula is also known as birth control pills for babies. You guys know this? So babies are fed soy-based formula have 13,000 to 22,000 times more estrogen compounds in their blood than babies on milk-based formula. Not that I'm saying milk-based is good, it's horrendous too. That's the equivalent of estrogen of 5 birth control pills a day. Staggering. So what does that mean? What it means is that girls are getting puberty younger, 7 years old, 8 years old. What does it mean for the boys? Boys are not having puberty happen at all sometimes because their secondary sex characteristics, which is all testosterone driven, is suppressed by the estrogen in their system. And it's happening. I mean, when I tell people this, they're like, oh geez, I fed my child soy and yeah, that happened to them. It happens, and I mean in the 80s, this was the thing, 90s, this was the thing. Soy milk, it's the best alternative. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with soy milk in moderation if it's certified organic. But giving it to a baby as its primary source, that's just mad. What would you feed a baby if you couldn't feed it breast milk?
When I went for cow's milk,
Yes.
I went on to soy milk and I used to get migraines.
Migraines from the soy milk. Migraines went away. Very common symptom. So what do you feed a baby if you can't give it to human breast milk? Hemp. Genius. Genius. The rest of the crowd is like, well, you seriously lost his mind now, he wants to give the baby daffa. Hemp seeds, shelled hemp seeds. Perfect for babies' nutritional needs. Perfect. Completely safe at any dose. So you can give it to them day in and day out. Completely safe. So if you're going to eat soy products, and I'm not saying don't eat soy products, I'm just saying make sure you eat the right kind. Certified organic. Has to be certified organic. It's the only way you can be safe that you're not eating the GMO. Has to be either fermented soy sauce, tempeh, or miso. Those are the ones to get.
Is tofu the same thing?
Check. Tofu is sometimes a little different. You're safer there. Tofu?
No, there's
Tempeh is definitely better. No, the only brand of miso that I trust is Clear Spring. It is available, Clear Spring.
Fabulous ferments.
Fabulous Ferments, that's the local one, hey. They're in Swellendam. So who are they selling to? They should be selling to me, right? Okay, ethical carb, you can get Fabulous Ferments, they sell it.
But what I read, I thought I read, is in Japan, they actually just for months
So they do the proper way. They even do courses on it. Yeah, there's a traditional way of fermenting the beans. I mean, in Japan, they have particular. No, it's very impressive. Okay, so what we actually want to replace the meat with